Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video, one that I did not expect to be making another so soon, because basically out of nowhere with the update from JP Dokkan last night, we got the showing from the data mines of the brand new World Tournament LR Jackie Chun, or Jackie Chun. I think you can pronounce it both ways. I've technically heard people say it both. But yeah, I am kind of shocked. Not only for the fact that we haven't had a world tournament since June on both versions of the game, for that matter, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, getting a new Dragon Ball LR basically out of nowhere is super exciting. So I'm excited to take a look at this guy. We do also have, real quick, the other World Tournament units that are being added is Gotenks is getting a new super attack before his TUR, and then we're also getting a Champa. I'm not going to go through and analyze these too crazily, but they are kind of like the mini units. You could almost kind of think of these as like the unfeatured banner units that come with the Dokkan Fest. But I did want to comment on these, that they did a really cool job basically giving this Gotenks a quick updated super attack. It's nothing too wild, right? It is absolutely like nothing too crazy or impactful, but it is really cool to see them take these almost like older super attacks and update the older super attacks in a newer style while still keeping the older super attack style, right? They didn't like make big scenes in the background and give all these crazy close-ups of Gotenks. It's still very reminiscent of an old Dokkan super attack. However, they literally just updated it with modern assets, right? Modern animations. And I have to say, the entire movement of Gotenks here is super fluid. From his Obi belt to him landing on the ground. I love, by the way, the little impact frames that they have when he actually explodes, or well, he explodes. The background explodes behind him, right? I'm trying to get to it because it's like one really quick frame, right? Like this. The shading looks fantastic for this. And then obviously, you know, that impact frame when the enemy is caught in the blast there. Is really, really cool right there. Yeah, very nice stuff. So definitely a very good job updating an old super attack like this and giving it a fresh coat of paint. One of the best, honestly, like older super attacks updated that I think I've ever seen, actually. Like the movement, especially on this, is just so fluid. I don't know why they popped off on this guy. And there is a new World Tournament Champa as well. He is the World Tournament reward for this time around, for this World T. And he actually just takes the super attack from the God of Destruction Champa, I believe, from the God event. And that's a pretty cool way to actually do this, right? It's definitely good to, you know, kind of get those super attacks that would normally stay unused, right? It's really cool to see them actually getting a little bit of usage by making them card. And I think a World Tournament reward card is perfect for something like this, because obviously this essay is like nothing too crazy. It's very simple, you know. It's definitely a pretty modern essay in terms of like old modern essays. That's such a weird way to put it, but it's definitely cool seeing them use something like this. Obviously these World Tournament reward cards can't have the super craziest essays because not everybody is going to get them, but they still want them to be good because obviously, you know, it's a limited unit. So I think doing it this way, where making it a boss essay that you're so used to seeing but not in this context, is actually a really cool way to do it. And we'll take a quick look at Jackie Chun's SSR and TUR super attacks after we look at the main ones, just because obviously we want to get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So let's go ahead and take a look at him. We'll also take a look at his card art here, because my gosh, this looks sick. I love the transition here to the blue. This is super cool. Definitely a very neat way to do this. Okay, so we have the 12 key super. I gotta say, I was watching these when these originally dropped last night, and man, they really popped off with these. I was like shocked that this was a World Tournament LR, right? They did a really good job with these, there is definitely some stuff that I think is a little bit rough around the edges, but overall, I think these are really, really nice, and they definitely do a very good job of representing this scene, and also giving a lot of great, like, Dragon Ball representation here. Like, I think that these are just very Dragon Ball-esque. And, of course, the active skill, where my man gets buff, is very, very cool. I love this shot with the Kamehameha. I will say the only thing that's kind of unfortunate about this active skill, because I think everything leading up to the end is actually great, the, like, actual payoff at the end, I feel like isn't too crazy with just like the white light enveloping the enemy. I know one of my homies made a great point about this. That would have been awesome if the final like KO screen here, instead of it basically just being like the beam, would have been something like the moon, you know, getting blown up by this attack, because obviously, you know, that's what this scene comes from. That would have been really cool, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead and take a look at these animations more in detail now. We got to go back to right here. By the way, of course, before I continue on and we get into the nitty gritty, got to give a huge shout out to the boy Dokkan World. Obviously, JP Dokkan is not tweeting these out as soon as these bad boys drop, so we are using his video. And thank you, Dokkan World, for giving me permission to use your videos for stuff like this. Of course, please check out the full video, linked in the description. This video would have not been possible without the boy. And of course, the Gotenks videos will be linked down there too. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're rocking here. Of course, we got to make it in the slow-mo. Man, I'm off my game today. Sorry, I apologize. I literally just woke up before recording this video. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. Okay, so we have Jackie Chun on the stage. We have him moving his arms a little bit, which I gotta say, when I saw this arm movement, I thought this was really, really good. They definitely did a good job with this, giving him some nice fluid movement for a lot of this. I think I'm gonna turn this to 720p since YouTube's having a heart attack trying to get this with the frame by frame. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So bringing his hands together here, this clap looks pretty good. I like this little effect that they do for this. I think Dokkan does a really good job of emulating the sort of Dragon Ball-esque style with these, right? Like, I know that this isn't anything too crazy, and we're literally, like, seconds into the essay, but I think that they definitely do a good job emulating that, because this reminds me a lot more of, like, a Dragon Ball aesthetic, rather than, you know, maybe having some different effects if this were from Z or Super. But yeah, so Jackie Chun claps his hands here. We, of course, have the World Tournament in the background, too. I think that's another thing with these animations that are so nice. The backgrounds are really, really good. That was something that absolutely blew me away when I initially took a look at this. I was like, wow, this actually looks really good. Looks just like the World Tournament. Reminds me perfectly of the setting. Looks really cool, and it's nice seeing the crowd actually in the background too, and they're not just like little dots, even though they are very goofily drawn. If you can see that zoomed in on your screen, they're like very funny looking, because they're basically just like sketches almost, but they are very cute looking in the background there too. We have the change. It's cool to see that this is how they did the transition, because I feel like a lot of the times Dokkan essays would literally just cut from one to another, but this white flash is actually great. And for me personally, I think it's not only a way nicer way to transition between that sort of thing, I also think that especially for how heavily the color in the background changes, I think that this is absolutely a way better way to do this thing, because I think that it would be way too jarring going from this like orange background here to then being to this dark like black and green here, right? I definitely think that that is a way better way to execute an animation like this, and I hope more Dokkan animations do stuff like this in the future, because I would like to see it. It's funny that the World Tournament LR is doing this. And by the way, I do want to preface this video with this too. Obviously, I don't want to be as hard on these essays as I usually am, or maybe as hard isn't the right word. Maybe it's critical that's more the appropriate term here, because obviously this is a free unit, and it's a free LR. It's not your standard Dokkan Fest or your Dokkan Fest LR or that type of thing, right? Okay, so nonetheless, though, we have Jackie Chun putting his hands together. They also do a great job here animating how intense this situation is, right? Not only does the smoke look really good in the background, but like with his hands pulsing, basically, right? And obviously him moving his body a little bit, right? I think that's a very good representation of the intensity of the situation. Definitely do a good job with that. Look at the shading and the lighting here, bro. Oh, so nice to look at this. I remember I saw this last night and I was like, this is crazy. So the white flash looks really good. These impact frames look very nice. I like how they actually have the impact frames move a little bit like this, right? It's cool to see the light gray and the more like black colors too, to sort of really give this like a flashing effect. Very intense right there. And then of course, this shot is insane, dude. So again, another fade from white, which is cool. A fade into white and then back into reality, which is cool because not only is it like you're sort of entering in. I don't know why it flashes back to white again for a second. That's a little bit weird. But not only is it almost like you're entering this like psychedelic trip, this like psychedelic state with this weird, crazy background. Again, this definitely feels a lot better because you're literally looking at this like black and white, you know, all over your screen. And then you immediately go to this color, which is obviously a lot different, right? Speaking of which, though, we fade in. The effects on Jackie Chun's hands look very nice. And look at his actual body, bro. These assets are so high quality for this guy. They absolutely knocked it out of the park with him. Another fade to white with the background being this crazy blue, which is super cool. Again, really nailing this Dragon Ball aesthetic, I feel like. Definitely a very, very good job overall on that for sure. The electricity effects coming off of him look very, very nice too. I definitely like that. It's interesting that they have like these shots where they're sort of far away and then they have them really close up. I guess it's just a way for them to supplement in a little bit more animation where they don't have to animate him so close up all the time, right? So we have this shot, which, oh my gosh, this is really nice. We have him open his eyes with this yellow glow. And I gotta say, I think they absolutely nailed this for sure. The effects going around. And look at the fade of yellow to white here, right, for his eyes. That looks so good. We then, of course, cut into the card art after a little bit of a zoom. And after the card art plays, we get him actually launching the attacker. His arms up for the beginning of this, or are they already out? I was just curious. Oh, no, okay, they're already out there. So the electricity flying down towards, and we also have the rocks breaking off the World Tournament Stage 2, which is a nice attention to detail. A little bit unfortunate. You can see the funny fade here. You can see the ghost of Jackie Chun past kind of present here. Again, I'm not going to be as critical about this because it is a free unit and it is a World Tournament LR. And probably with this one, it happens so fast that I don't know if you would notice it as heavily, but it is still something that they definitely could have added a couple of more frames, especially considering we just saw Gotenks with how fluid he was, bro. That was crazy. But anyway, the electricity looks good. Once Jackie Chun actually raises his arms, I think the effect actually looks pretty good. And it's interesting too, they use a little bit of an older Dokkan effect here, where they actually just stretch the PNG. You can see, right, this is the same pose that he's still in the whole time. But if we go forward just a little bit, you can see him kind of leaning back, obviously minus his arms moving there. But that is something that some older Dokkan essays did to sort of emulate movement, was actually stretch the PNG, which is kind of interesting to see that here. But I think it definitely works. Obviously, with his arms moving a little bit there, that looks pretty good too. The electricity effects, the effects in his hand. Interesting that there are a lot of cuts to white here, or a lot of fades to white, I guess I should say. It's interesting that there's so many transitions. I feel like this one wasn't as necessary because the background change isn't as drastic, but that's okay. So, this very nice shot right here of Jackie Chun pushing his hands forward with the energy flowing off of them. Now, I love the way that they animate this too, with it sort of going wild off of his hands. I think that looks good. And the electricity shooting off now. Again, the background looks so good. They definitely did a good job with the effects on this. And then it electrocutes the enemy. You know, I will say, I guess more like paralyzes the enemy, because that's what that attack is for. The one thing with these animations that I really find interesting is it's really the end for me that I think is like so lackluster. Like everything that we just looked at was pretty solid, right? Like I would say that for the most part, all of that is really great. But the ending doesn't really feel like it has a lot of payoff here at the end with this section, right? And funny enough, I was talking about that with the active skill. I almost wonder if that's just because of the fact that this scene is obviously so intense because Goku's like, ah! You know, in this fight. And obviously, since the Stinky Sprite is basically limited to the pose that you see on the screen here for this particular scene, maybe that's why I feel like this just kind of feels sort of lackluster. But at the same time, I still feel like they could have done something, I don't want to use this word, but I mean a little bit more epic. I know that's kind of a goofy word to use for this situation, but I feel like it still fits for this. Regardless, though, we now move on to the 18-key super attack. First of all, before we even get into anything, I love this perspective here. They've done this perspective in a couple of super attacks for sure. Hydrate or dihydrate, baby. And it's always cool to see. But man, this looks so nice. Not only from the, you know, just perspective of looking at this as the world tournament, right? And you can also see all the characters in the background who you can actually kind of like, you know, recognize some of these people from the world tournament audience, which is pretty cool. This background looks nice. This angle just looks so good. And the Stinky Sprite is on screen and it doesn't even look that bad. Maybe it's also because your attention is kind of focused on Jackie Chun for this section. But nonetheless, I really like this shot. Unfortunately, immediately the character does another one of these little fade transitions, which I'm definitely not too much of a fan of. I really wish they would have animated him like lifting his arm up and his leg, but that's all right. We do have this orange fade in here as he begins to run forward. Now, interestingly enough, you can see that this fade of the running is kind of weird looking, right? They really use these fading in and out asset effects here a ton, right? With how he runs. I think his hair moving looks good, but I really don't like the look of this personally, because I would have much rather them just animated him like running more fluidly. However, I do understand that obviously animating a shot like this so close up with high quality assets would definitely be a lot more work, right? It would take a lot more effort for, you know, maybe that would be something they would do more for a full, you know, like premium unit. However, I think it's more akin to the running section later in this. That's why I'm kind of scrubbing through this. But I kind of want to chalk this a little bit more up to, I'll show you what I mean more when we get to that section, but I kind of want to chalk this up more to like, they're almost trying to go for like a slow-mo-esque effect type of thing, right? Maybe not completely slow-mo, but that is sort of like the effect that this kind of gives off when I watch it. So I want to say that's what they were going for maybe, but realistically I think it's a little bit more of cutting corners, you know, understandably, because of course this is a free unit, right? Okay, so we now move past that, though. This, I think they actually nailed it, right? We have him come to a standstill here, which this is a little bit jarring going from this to this, I do have to say. But funny enough, it leads into literally a fade because Jackie Chun fades out of existence. And I think they absolutely nailed the afterimage effect here. And here, too, they definitely did a good job with it. I don't know why this one doesn't have the funny movement on it. He just looks like a Force Ghost that's not blue, basically. But this looks really good. I think they also absolutely nailed the aesthetic of Dragon Ball here with the colors of Jackie Chun here. This looks more like a sprite that they literally just, like, changed the color a little bit and made it see-through, which is kind of weird that they didn't just make an asset similar to this, but I think that looks pretty good. Same thing with the back sprite for this one, which is so weird. Like, this feels so much more Dragon Ball-esque and following that Dragon Ball aesthetic, when this one literally just looks like the enemy sprite and they lowered the opacity a little bit, you know? However, background here, oh my gosh, dude, this shot is so nice. This would be like one shot that I think you could remove the characters and you'd have a banger wallpaper on your hands for this one, because this looks super nice. Again, capturing that Dragon Ball aesthetic really well. That almost like, I don't want to say old looking kind of feel of like how the Dragon Ball animation looks, or like even just the TV quality, right? Which is so weird to say that that sort of feeling is captured here. But looking at that background, I really feel like that sort of feeling is given off with this, which is really, really cool. Also, again, great job on the Jackie Chun and sticking his tongue out at Goku. I think that's pretty good. Definitely very nice. We have the enemy sprite actually attack, which is cool because obviously as soon as the enemy sprite attacks, the Jackie Chun ghosts just disappear, right? This one, they just kind of go pop and he's gone, right? It literally reminds me of those memes where someone goes ah and then they're just gone. But punching the enemy sprite, the Jackie Chun actually fades away, which is pretty cool that they actually have that one, you know, properly fade, which is very, very nice. The enemy also having this little exclamation point question mark is a nice little touch here too, because obviously it's like, huh, where did they go, right? That's a good way to emphasize that sort of thing. This shot actually looks really sick for how small that is, with him sliding in. That looks really cool. I don't know if I've ever seen a Dokkan animation quite like that. That's really nice, to be honest with you. Even though that is like such a small asset, right? Like all things considered, the way that they have him fade in, the little anime motion lines on him, right? The actual movement that they have as well as he sort of settles into place, right? Before the kick happens. Really, really nice job. I think this sudden kick is good too, because obviously in this scene, right, of course he would be going, whap, like immediately, right? Because he's trying to catch them off guard. That's the whole point, right? With the kick up, the follow through, and very nice Dragon Ball-esque effect, just like I was talking about before here, right, with this. Very, very nice job on that, too. We have him land and immediately begin to move forward. I will say, even when this isn't in the slow motion of YouTube, I do think that this section looks a little bit laggy. I don't know what it is about it, but if you look at it in, like, normal speed, I don't know, maybe it's just his mustache and his beard. It just looks like a little bit laggy to me. Like, maybe laggy isn't the right word, but it feels like maybe there's just not enough frames, or maybe there's too many frames for this. I don't know. It feels a little bit like choppy, which is kind of weird to say. But that is definitely the look that I get from that. Let me know if you agree with that in the comment section below. But anyhow, after this section, which, by the way, always got to comment the anime-esque backgrounds. Always love when they do this type of thing, so it's really cool to see. We have the Jackie Chun sprite now reach forward to give Goku a good old whap right there. Very, very nice. Obviously, again, quick punches make sense for this because, of course, this is literally right after he just bamboozled them, you know, with the ghostly apparitions of Jackie Chun past. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a fade here. With this type of thing, right, I would almost just rather them snap from one asset to another, which is kind of interesting because literally up until this point, right, like for this one, that's what they did, right, with him jumping to change positions, but then they do a fade. It's kind of interesting to me that that's all in one sequence. Nonetheless, though, we have him kick the enemy, and this is actually really cool. A little bit of a rotoscoping effect here to kind of give you the effect like Jackie Chun is actually kicking in 3D. It's only like a couple of frames there, right? You can see that, right, when he kicks, right, you can see his body sort of turns a little bit, and then his head sort of turns with the follow through, right? That kind of gives you that effect like it's 3D. It's very slight. I don't know if I would even maybe color rotoscoping in this case because it's so minuscule, but it's still worth noting because obviously it's still there. So then we cut to this, which is so funny that the 12 key was doing all these cuts to white when this essay is just like balls to the walls, you know, everything going crazy, right? This very cool anime-esque effect. I love the way that Jackie Chun looks here. He's coming in for the attack. This is actually pretty cool because obviously this fade is not a fade between assets, but this is more meant to be like a little bit of a shockwave sort of effect here, right? And they actually do that with this too. With him coming up to hit Goku, right, you can see he's moving so fast that you have this bit of an after image coming after him, which is really cool with the knee there, right? Again, nice blue anime-esque effects. And the enemy flying up into the sky. I combined it stage and sky. Thank you, brain. Love the... They look so goofy in the World Tournament crowd down there, but I think it fits really well because, again, that Dragon Ball aesthetic is really, like, put to use here. And then, of course, we have this final section here. This looks really cool with this shot. Even, like, this, I feel like they didn't even have to animate this, but they did with the whole thing of him just moving a little bit and then the little sparkle in his eye. Oh, man, so good, dude. Okay, so the card art fades away. Now, this is what I was talking about, right? With him running forward with this section, obviously there is a ton of asset fading going on here. However, this section to me looks a lot more akin to a slow motion type of effect, right? A lot more than the first one did for sure. Maybe it's because they add in that little bit of like a extra sort of pose or fade in there, right? It's not basically one side to another, right? It's one, and then they sort of have it go to a middle-ish pose, and then they have him pull his arm back a little bit, and then they finally have his arm go back all the way, right? Maybe it's because they have him stop in the middle a couple times that it looks more like this slow-mo sort of effect, rather than, you know, actually just being like trying to cut corners a little bit. It's funny, too, because the last one, they literally just cut from his arm coming down a little bit to then already basically being over there. But it is true to what they had in the beginning. It just kind of gets cut off a little bit. But it's funny that basically it's just the one middle section that sort of represents the whole, you know, aspect of the slow-mo thing. Anyway, cutting to him flying forward now. Obviously, this is a reference to the card art. This looks really, really cool here with him flying towards the enemy. I will say, I would have loved if they actually would have placed the card art here instead, like right before he makes contact with the enemy. Or maybe right before, you know, obviously after the blue scene is done, right? Then they go to the card art, because I love it when they have more of a fluid transition and they have it go right to the card art, right? Like matching up with the super attack animation. A little bit of a missed opportunity here for sure, but still definitely looks pretty cool if I do say so myself. They did a great job animating his mustache and his hair and even the speed lines down there. Definitely a very, very good job on that for sure. I will say, though, I do think that the payoff, unfortunately, again, isn't that great towards the end of this essay, right? Like, this looks pretty cool. The background looks fantastic. I think Jackie Chun himself looks pretty good. But just having it basically, like, make impact with the enemy with this, like, right? It cuts into his foot already there, and he basically just goes a couple little bit closer inches to the enemy, and then they have this yellow effect pop up on the screen, right? I really wish there was a little bit more to this kick, right? Because it feels like kind of just a little bit lackluster. Like all of this crazy animation that we had up until this point, this feels like it could have been included in a like Jackie Chun, like just world tournament, like reward card or something like this with a more simple kick and then leading up to this shot, rather than this being like the magnum opus of, you know, a bunch of pretty nice animation that we've seen up until this point, right? But we do have Goku fly away now literally out towards the sky with the world tournament crowd in the background. And this is pretty cool because this ends up being the KO screen, which I think is a very nice touch. And you actually get to look at the background a little bit more here with the KO, which is really cool. Hydrate or Dihydrate 2.0, baby. But yeah, very, very cool stuff there for sure. Okay, so now we have the active skill. So let's talk about this. Interestingly enough, his jacket is already kind of off when he starts to pull it off. But you have him throw it to the side there. I think transitioning, by the way, from here to here with him literally just like immediately having it off is kind of, it's a little bit, I wish there was more frames in between, but it definitely isn't too crazy. Definitely not too bad, honestly, because then the actual follow through of throwing the cape, the jacket off is pretty cool. I like that they sort of use this as a transition too, where he throws it towards the camera, so your attention is on that. And then he obviously has it towards the side because, you know, that's where it's actually going. I do kind of wish that they would have had this cover the entire screen, because I think that would have made a perfect transition. You know, if they would have, it would have been crazy if it would have covered the screen and then, you know, the coat sort of falls off of the camera and then it cuts to this scene. That would be so sick, dude. But then I guess you wouldn't get that little bit of him actually throwing the coat in the air, because obviously the coat would be closer to the ground. But anyway, this shot looks very nice of him throwing the coat away here. The close-up, oh my gosh, dude, the close-ups in this active skill are so nice. Look at the assets here, so high quality. We have Jackie Chun powering up here, which I think this looks super nice, right? Interesting that they don't have him sort of just like fully squat down, right? Like, I really like the electricity effects here, by the way. Again, very Dragon Ball-esque. They did a definitely good job with that. I kind of wish they would have almost like sparkled or like kind of faded away and like as they were like powering up rather than just flashing them in. But interestingly enough, here on this section, there is a little bit of movement. You can see Jackie Chun's hands and his body are actually pulsing a little bit, which is cool because this obviously isn't just like a static PNG that they're moving. Even his head, right, obviously has a little bit of movement here. Lots of very minimal movement in this essay, but I think that's something that makes it really pop and stand out because even though you don't really think about it consciously, right, subconsciously, you're taking these things in and it makes these animations feel a lot more alive, which is cool. It's interesting, yeah, that they cut from this shot to this shot. I kind of would have thought they would have had him, like, stance up, but that's okay. This shot of him powering up looks absolutely fantastic. Again, the whole thing with the body, little minimal movements here of his body pulsing, I think is just done so well here. Again, the background effects really emphasize how crazy this scene is, and obviously the Dragon Ball-esque, you know, aesthetic of this whole scene too. They do a very good job. This is definitely one of my favorite shots here in this whole thing for sure. Even his arm movement honestly isn't too bad, even though it is like kind of from one pose to the next to bring it down, right? Obviously the follow through is there a little bit, and I think it's all right. Very cool shot though. Look at his arm is literally like Popeye the Sailor Man. But yeah. This shot is also really, really good too. We have a little bit of a close-up of him first before we zoom out to his hands in front of his face, which also looks really nice. I really like this bit of perspective here. Look at how his arm expands. Where did that go? Right there, by the way. Holy cow, with his arm, or his, I'm sorry, his mouth opening, rather, I guess I should say. Yeah, definitely a little bit jarring on the arm department, but obviously he's literally growing like crazy here, so I mean, I think it's fine. Again, this little pulsing effect, which is very, very nice. Again, the perspective here too, with it being closer to you and him being farther, is done really well. Obviously using the assets to their advantage to, you know, have it sort of in your face and then have the farther away asset give you that effect like you're actually a lot closer to his hand, which is really, really nice. Okay. So they then cut to him already stanced up. This is one thing that I definitely wish this this active skill did a little bit better too, was like stancing them up a little bit more, because it's always so much more intense when you actually see them get into these poses, right? Like cutting from one pose to the next like this is fine, but I definitely wish that they would have had him like pulling his arms back, right, to get ready for the attack. Definitely would have been pretty cool. But even though this asset right here is a little bit low quality, it's because it's about to be a little bit farther away in a moment here. This is a pretty cool shot though. I definitely like the camera angle that they chose, where it's sort of sliding across his body. Actually, this doesn't really... Does it appear later with him stanced up like this? No, why is this asset so low quality for this? I feel like they would have made this a little bit higher quality. Huh, interesting. But yeah, nonetheless though, look at the funny faces on the World Tournament crowd. I really like this camera angle where it sort of slides across his back like that. Definitely pretty unique, and I like that quite a bit. I think this cut is actually quite good, going literally right into his face. I also don't know why they did the funny body like shift right at the end here, and they didn't do it throughout like the entirety of the slide here. Unless it is there, but it's just hard to notice because it's sliding. I don't think it is though until the very end. Oh no, I guess it is, yeah. Huh, I didn't even notice that. That's pretty cool actually. See, it's stuff like this why I love to do these animation analysis videos. But yeah, the cut to his face is really, really nice, right? Definitely like that cut a lot. And obviously, this is a super cool shot. Dokkan's been doing a lot of these in recent and even like a couple years where they've been doing these super close-up shots, right? Where it's not even just like a regular close-up, it's like really in their face, which is pretty cool, right? Obviously the Kame, very, very cool. Here we cut to him pulling his arms back here. First of all, I gotta say I really, really like the black lines that they put on him. I think that definitely looks really, really great. I like these little anime speed lines as well too. I do wish that there was definitely more frames again in between this, but again, it's a World Tournament LR. I'm not going to be too critical on the boy. But as he brings his hands forward, right, it is literally like backhands, and then middle ground, right? And then ba-boom with his hands forward towards the screen. This does look very nice, though. Like, I think Jackie Chun's style here is very, very great to sort of emphasize the intensity of this. And obviously, again, that sort of Dragon Ball aesthetic at play here. We have the white energy sort of bellow out of Jackie Chun's hands. And the screen gets taken over by it. We do cut away, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they would have faded there instead of just cutting there, which is kind of funny that they did that a ton in the 12 key, but they don't do it a crazy amount here. But yes, we have him charging up his attack, a flash of white to then have the beam flying up towards the sky, which I think this looks pretty cool. They actually animated his hair a little bit here, which is cool. Funny enough, I think that's actually more PNG stretching. I don't think it's actually like moving, because you can see the top of his head also moving a little bit, which is kind of weird. But obviously, it's a lot simpler for them to do this, and you're not really like looking at this scene in that much detail when you're watching it in game. But yeah, we have the Kamehameha blast into the enemy. I like the effect of this in terms of the color, by the way. I think they definitely did a good job with that, because obviously it's not like that blue that is more akin to, I guess, DBZ, right? I think they definitely have a little bit more of a white look for the Kamehameha in Dragon Ball. But yeah, I like the way that this expands, right? Bursting into the enemy here. And then, of course, they do the effect that they've done with a couple of other essays, or they have the enemy fade to black, and then they have this, like, white light just kind of take over them in the energy to sort of represent them getting swept up in it. Again, I do kind of wish that this would have been a little bit of a cooler KO screen, right? Definitely, like, maybe the moon going boom. Because obviously with these other essays, right, this one, the KO screen maybe isn't as crazy, with Goku basically just getting hit with the paralyze attack. This one is obviously very nice, where it's literally just the World Tournament Arena. But it's definitely not too bad. And again, like I said in the beginning, I just wish the payoff of the active skill was a little bit crazier, right? It's interesting that all of these animations, I feel like, kind of followed that same sort of thing, where the beginning and the middle were really, really great, and then the end kind of fell flat a little bit. Maybe, again, it's just because it's a free unit, so they're not doing, like, as much crazy stuff with, like, you know, unique KO screens and stuff like that. So I feel like it is definitely a little bit more understandable in that department. But that is going to do it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely really, really like these assets a lot, actually, but I really like these animations quite a bit. I think that they do a fantastic job of representing this unit and this scene. Obviously, the fight versus Jackie Chun versus Kid Goku. I think that this is a very good representation of that. They got a lot of key moments packed in here for you having just 3 animations, which I think is really cool. And obviously, having that moment with the big finale in there as the active skill is really, really nice. Also, definitely listen to the OST on the main Dokkan channel if you haven't yet, because oh my gosh, bro, that OST slaps. So overall, I really, really like these. Again, I think most importantly, it does a really good job of capturing that feel of watching Dragon Ball, that aesthetic, even that like sort of old TV look. I think that this captures really well in a lot of areas. I think it would have been cool if this guy would have been a proper LR in terms of being summonable, because then obviously these animations would have been even more high quality, and we would have gotten some even more crazy stuff. You know, maybe some of this stuff that I felt like was kind of left out from this unit maybe would have been added in here if this would have been a summonable unit. But I'm glad we got this represented regardless, and I do think that this is perfect for a World Tournament LR, because, I mean, the whole thing literally happens at the World Tournament. So, you know, it's kind of perfect for this sort of thing, I feel like. But let me know what you guys feel about these animations in the comment section below. Overall, I really, really like these. I think that they're great. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.